tourism, lifestyle, and destinations, while learning the people, culture, and everything in between, one episode at a time. Introducing your host, Tayar Arishadare. Welcome to the Traviator. Learn the world.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tayo Orishadare. Welcome again to another episode of The Traviator. On today's episode, we'll be discussing that aspect of aviation that people don't naturally like to talk about. Some people actually refer to it as the dark aspect of aviation. Actually, a lot of airlines around the world also the dark website. I hope you already have an inkling, and if you don't, we're going to let that after all. But to discuss this aspect of aviation is someone who I can trust to discuss it without that sentiment that people would naturally bring into discussions like this, especially when in this part of the world, the blood of Jesus is actually a bit more than logic, than logistics, than planning, than doing the right things. He's an aviation professional of many years, and he's actually honed his skills over time and has his own sort of reputation in the industry. I heard about him first as a professional with the defunct ADC Airlines, after which he joined the then Virgin Nigeria. And I remember, as part of his responsibility in Virgin Nigeria, he led the GO team. The GO team, as it then was a team that would naturally have planning, have drills, have trainings, refreshers, to prepare people for unforeseen circumstances. And as you also know, that when things happen sometimes, it might actually be the end of a business. So in order to ensure business continuity, they also factor happenings like this into their planning. And where it happened, what are we going to do as an organization to ensure that the business survives? Ladies and gentlemen, he also went further to working for another international airline where he led airport team. And today he's a managing partner of Ether Consulting. He's no other than Mr. Percival Uwechue, but I call him my Egbon, but it's not something he likes. Welcome to the studios.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Thank you for having me.
And I'm sure you giggled more because of the Egbon bit, more than any other thing.
It's all good.
I'm really happy I was able to bring you here. But just so you know, it took me a bit of time to put this together. But despite that, the notice I gave him was not only super short. I promised to get back to him. I didn't get back to him in good time. But with the very short notice, he was still here on the dot of time. I swore by anything before he arrived, and I was telling my team members that, guys, go and wait outside to receive him. If it's 1 second before 2 o'clock, he'll be here. And he didn't let me down. Truth to that, he knocked just on the dot of 2 o'clock. Welcome again, Egbon.
Thank you very much.
And how are you doing?
I'm good.
And for those people who are not Yoruba speakers, Egbon in the Nigerian parlance is just giving respect to someone who is older than you. He doesn't like the age factor, but hey, you're stuck here. Is there anything I can do differently? Welcome again.
Good. Thank you very much.
So today we're going to be talking about that topic called, this topic is managing aviation emergencies, especially from an airline perspective. Accidents do occur. Accidents will occur. How ready are we for it? Can we actually be ready?
Actually, yes, we can. It takes determination. It takes commitment. The biggest word there being commitment on the part of the company. But I'll flip it back a few steps. Emergency response planning and management is part of your business continuity plan.
Right.
Business continuity management of an airline, be it military, be it civil. It has to be a part of it, because no matter what happens, life must continue beyond the incident or the accident. And on top of which, ICAO regulations pass through the National Civil Aviation Authorities of each sovereign state requires every airline or airline operator, airport operator actually as well, to have an emergency response plan.
So it's not doomsday prophecy talking about emergency.
It's like they say, Boy Scout, be ready.
So why do you have to speak about this dark side of aviation?
It's difficult. It's like talking about death. People don't like to talk about death. I think husband and wives, parents and children must talk about death, because it helps prepare the mind for it. It's inevitable. Every time aeroplanes take off and land.
Oh, I shall not die, but prefer the name.
No, but on the planner's side, every time a plane takes off and lands and there's no incident, is a day closer to your incident. So your probability is higher with the high with your frequencies being higher, or your flight rotations higher. It's just probability just increases for anything to happen.
I wish I can wish away what you just said now.
I wish I could wish it away too.
I hope I'll fly again.
No, I think flying is people ask me to come to Kano, for instance. If it's free by road, I'd rather pay and fly. The risk is greater, but the time is shorter. And aviation is just dynamic. It's interesting. It's a bridge.
Be that as it may, our statistics actually reveal that aviation is still the most efficient, actually the safest of all the multimodal transport systems we have around the world. So, saying this now, what actually constitutes an emergency or emergencies or potential emergencies in the aviation sector, particularly from an airline perspective?
Accidents do just happen. They start from mistakes, from errors, miscalculations, human factor basically. But then again, it's a whole spectrum what accidents and incidences are. You've got the loss of altitude, you've got the loss of cabin pressure, you've got bad turbulence, you've got a plane overshooting runway, you've got a plane losing an engine or losing both engines, you have a plane landing and losing its landing gear, or about to land and the landing gears are not extending. There are all sorts. There's weather related.
What's left in aviation that is not a potential accident?
But the probability of these things, it's limited to the different parts you're operating from. Somebody who lives in Alaska already knows it's cold weather, it's snow, it's all sorts. So there are certain checks, pre-flight checks you must do. You stay in the desert area, there are also some things that are expected of you. So we who live in Nigeria, we know we have our rainy season, we have our harmattan. I heard somebody talking on the radio, on the phone this morning, and the visibility is poor. There's a minimum you must adhere to. If you fail to take on the minimum and something happens, it's not weather that caused the problem. The primary responsibility or primary cause is neglecting the information that requires you to make informed decisions. So that's human factor. But yeah, like we say, accidents are things that happen. We can plan for them. If we choose to in this industry, we must plan for them in this industry. Otherwise, we lose customers' confidence.
Okay, so I wonder how you sleep. Just the way you were reeling out the potential causes of incident, my body was actually cringing, and that is coming from someone who's had maybe more than 18 years experience in the industry, and I still feel that way. So I can imagine you as a listener at home, how you feel, but maybe there's still some kind of ray of hope at the end of the spectrum. How prepared are airlines for emergencies like this?
There's always hope. That's all we live for. The reason we prepare for them is we hope it doesn't happen, but in the event it happens, we hope we're ready and we can act based on the hope that we've been trained. But the interesting thing is it's part and parcel of a business.
Right.
I sell you a ticket. Part of my responsibility is if anything goes wrong, I must be able to take care of you. Just like if we don't deliver your bag or we something goes wrong, we have to divert and drop you somewhere else. There's a duty of care that we must be prepared and to take care of you. Duty of care, that is it. So it's a duty of care for every single company operating in the industry to have an emergency plan, even if it's military. So it's not just civil, it's military as well.
I wish. Okay, so I was really excited about this, but now I'm just thinking, okay. Yes, but I mean, if anything else, it gives you the comfort that airlines are not just moving from point A to point B and hoping for the happy times and just leveraging your funds. They're also really prepared for those times that we just don't like to talk about. So from the airline aspect of it, should there be any incident, any accident, near misses, air returns, what are the expected responses from the airlines? What are we to expect them to do from the airline perspective?
It's two-pronged. One, there are some incidences that don't require anything.
Anything, okay?
Yeah. And there are some that require a certain level of communication, a certain level of
compensation,
a certain level of emotional support. And there are some that actually are way out there in the event of fatalities. So it depends on, one, there's a standard plan, and in each of this plan, they address different things.
Scenarios,
so it depends on what scenario you are dealing with.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm just like sighing a lot today because okay, so is this supposed to be a two-way thing, or is it just supposed to be from an airline perspective? Are there roles that the passengers or the public do we have parts they need to play? Should they happen to have happened around their locale, or is just one-sided?
It's interesting that you say that, because what pops to mind, or two things pop to mind. One, the incident ADC in Abuja is unfortunate, but we learn from those incidences. That's what makes aviation interesting.
Right.
If an accident happens, it's thoroughly investigated, outcomes published, and then steps put in place that those things don't repeat themselves. Right. Or those incidences, you never have the same incident except with 73 Max. But that's story for another day. Now, with the public, there's definitely parts they can play. I'll use Dana as an example. Dana went down in the middle of a city, and in such an area that it took a bit of time before the airport authority could get there. Mm-hmm. So the first responders were the local indigenes of that area.
Right.
And what they can do, I think, hopefully they did their best, because I didn't go to the site, but expectedly, is evacuate as many people as you can without endangering yourself. Number two, if you can't help and you are driving and you hear sirens or people asking for space, automatically we have to understand that we must create the space.
This is Lagos, sir.
But if you look at it this way, that it could be your brother, your sister, my wife, or my child in that plane, and I'm driving in traffic. So this headiness of, I'm not going to leave the place, there's nothing in the car. We need to step away from that. You don't know who is sitting in that car. So in that ambulance, a car might also be used for evacuation. So the important thing is, one, keep inward and outbound roads free as much as you can.
Yeah.
Another downside for us here is we don't, it's not part of our education to teach emergency response, first aid responders and all of that. So you find people don't handle, even in normal car, vehicular accidents, the way the injured are handled sometimes actually complicates their health issues thereafter, or lead to their fatality. So I think that is something we discussed at the emergency response, one of the emergency response seminars or drills we had when I was in the airport. And we agreed that the individuals in areas of flight path, the residents or their local community leaders, that's the word, the community leaders of those communities around airports and runways should be encouraged to be a part of the solution. Because if it goes down at 6 p.m., all civil servants have gone home. Some live within the airports, but the residents wake up and sleep in those places. They know the ins and outs of those areas. They're the best resource you have in the material time of the incident. So it's always value add to bring them on. And of course, they can give you tips that you, in your educated area, would have written a manual without physically walking the path. And even if you physically walk the path, the people know the area better and can better help guide your decisions. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's not all dark. Beyond the fact that we as professionals are prepared, also you as key stakeholders in the society, especially for those, like I said, that live along flight paths. And flight paths are those of you who are fortunate enough, when you raise your head in the morning, you actually will almost always see one aircraft just going and another one just following through that trail. There's every chance that you live on a flight path. When it happens, as Mr. Uwechue has rightly posited, you should please, as much as possible, where you are able to help safely without endangering yourself. Lift casualty victims or people that are involved in the accident the best way possible with the highest duty of care to a point of safety. And even if you are not able to help, perhaps if the least you can do is just clear the way for responders, you could be saving lives just by saving those few seconds. Mr. Uwechue, thank you very much again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope, it's not even I hope, I know that there are still more to tap from your wealth of knowledge. But why this has to come first is because I know that not a lot of professionals will be ready to discuss this. Thank you very much for doing justice to this.
Glad to have. Thank you very much.
Okay, and on Traviator, it is our culture that we know that there are different levels of truth. You have your truth. There's the word truth. We hope to actually find a meeting point between the word truth and your truth by bridging the gap with information. Until the next time again, my name is Tayo Orishadare. Keep learning the world.
Thanks for joining us on The Traviator. Please stay up to date with us by visiting thetraviator.com. You may also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and all podcast outlets. Until next time, keep learning the world, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Traviator Podcast.